I'm back with more things I hate! Or really just things that you're screwing up that keep you from making money as a writer. But before we start, please remember to like and subscribe. It really does help the channel. And if you find these videos helpful, click on the link in the description and check out our Patreon, or go to our website, falstaffbooks.com, and buy a book. Pay my mortgage. Pay for the renovations to this office. I'll be right back. Until then, enjoy some David Childers and the modern Don Juans. Hey there. Welcome back to 10 Things I Hate About You. No, wait, that was the movie with Julia Stiles and the Joker. Smoker. Midnight Toker. No, wait, sorry. I'm easily distracted. I'm John Hartness. I am a professional fantasy author and editor and publisher and podcaster and guy who says fuck too much on videos. Today, I'm going to talk about one of the reasons you don't sell very many books at conventions or signings. It's because your pitch sucks. Bye. I'm done. That's fine. That's it. No, seriously. I've seen a lot of you. I've gone to a lot of conventions, a couple dozen a year, for probably the past several years. More than 10 a year for at least 10 years. And I've heard a lot of you pitch your books, either on panels or to me, trying to sell me books. By the way, if the ribbon says guest, you can soften up the pitch. I'm probably not going to buy anything. God, you guys suck at this. Really, really bad. So let's break it down. Let's break down the pieces of how to pitch a book to a human being with a $20 bill in their hand and a burning desire for glorious new literature. You with me? All right. Step 1, profile the customer. Yep, I'm telling you to profile your customer. You have more than one book. If you don't, then you can skip all of this because you're going to pitch the same book regardless. I have, God, at any given time, anywhere from 20 to 40 books on the table in front of me. And when someone walks up and says, hey, what are your books about? I have seconds to figure out what book to pitch them. I'm going to pitch different books based on who I think is more likely to buy it. This may come as a surprise to you, but the target demographic for Amazing Grace is different than the target demographic for Queen of Cats. And that's different than the target demographic for Quincy Harker, Demon Hunter. We've redone the cover. And that is different from the target demographic of Bubba the Monster Hunter. I profile ruthlessly. If it's a guy who's built kind of like me and is standing there in some mossy oak camo and a Clemson Tigers hat, he's getting the Bubba pitch first. If he says he doesn't like horror and doesn't like monster books, well, then I go to the Black Knight Chronicles. Now, why am I going to pitch him a comedic urban fantasy novel when he looks like, well, like me, looks like a giant redneck? Back to that Clemson hat. The protagonists in the book went to Clemson. I have a niece that went to Clemson, and it gives me an opportunity to mock her alma mater by putting it in a book. So, if it's a young woman who comes up to me in a t-shirt that references the TV show Supernatural, I'm going to steer her towards the Quincy Harker Demon Hunter series. If the person who comes up says, I really like Lord of the Rings and Game of Thrones, I'm going to steer them towards Queen of Cats, because this is a high fantasy. You can tell by the sword. And if the person who's standing there is a woman in her 40s to 50s to 60s, and she says, I don't really read much of this weird stuff, I'm going to say, well, how about this? This is a book about a middle-aged woman who solves mysteries. She just happens to talk to ghosts to do it. It's kind of like Ghost Whisperer meets Jessica Fletcher. Now, if we're in the South, which we usually are, I say the Ghost Whisperer meets Aunt B with a mystery on top of it. Those are called comps. When someone is standing in front of your table at a convention, and especially at a Comic Con, or what I tend to call trade show cons, where your entire job is to sit behind a table and talk to people about your work, they do not want to hear the 30-second explanation of the plot of your book. You can watch them. You can watch as you get into it and you start talking about what your protagonist does in chapter 1 and the big turning point and who they fall, and you can watch their faces start to droop until they look like Clayface from the old Batman cartoons. Or was Clayface the droopy-faced guy from Dick Tracy? I don't remember. But my God, you are literally melting these customers, and you are talking yourself out of sales, because instead of walking up to your table and saying, hello, nice person, I want to support the fact that you are a struggling artist and I want to buy your book. You were funny on that paneling. You said lots of bad words, and I think bad words are amusing. I'm going to say, awesome. Fuck is in the very first sentence of this book. This is just like if Supernatural were on HBO, but only Dean, no Sam. So it's twice the F-bombs, half the crying. Here, hardcovers are 30. Cut it down. Stop talking about the plot of your book when you're standing at the table. Feel them out. You can tell if they actually give a shit or if they just want a real quick description. And God knows, if you really pay attention, you can tell if they don't give a shit. So let's say that it's a guy standing at your table, and he's a good-looking guy. He's in his mid-20s, maybe his early 30s, and he looks spectacularly out of place. He looks like he should be perched on a bar stool in a sports bar, eating wings and sucking down craft beer. But his significant other, his girlfriend, his wife, his husband, his boyfriend, his partner, they're goth as fuck, and they are staring at the awesome jewelry that the person at the table next to you makes. This guy can't do anything but stand there. He's stuck. Don't waste a whole lot of time pitching to this guy, because he didn't give a fuck when he walked in the door. He's really just hoping to get a blowjob if he suffers through this. Sorry. Maybe you can do it. Maybe you are funny and engaging and witty enough to make the sale. But let me break it down for you. I do Heroes Con every year here in Charlotte. It is the best comic-focused convention on the East Coast every year. It is the largest comic-focused convention on the East Coast every year by a mile. Yeah, I know, New York Comic Con. New York Comic Con ain't a goddamn comic convention, y'all. It's a great big trade show where people launch video games and shit. Heroes Con gets anywhere from 25 to 45,000 people through the door in 3 days. Sorry, I've had my hair down for a little while and it's itching my nose. And I got to trim my beard and mustache because this stuff's driving me crazy. But Heroes Con gets a shitload of people. You will sit there at your table for 8 or 10 hours talking to dozens, if not hundreds of people. by the end of the day on Sunday, you're goddamn exhausted. Save up your energy. Because the person who comes by an hour before closing on Sunday, they may very well have 20 bucks burning a hole in their pocket because they allotted themselves $100 to spend at the con, and they've only spent 80 of it. I know this happens because that's exactly what I used to do when I went to Heroes Con. I set aside $100 every year. That didn't count parking. That wasn't my food. That was my buy shit money. I had $100. I wasn't going to leave that building without spending that $100. Everybody else at the con may very well be the same way. So don't put roadblocks in there. Don't give them a reason to say no, and don't bore them. Occasionally this backfires. Occasionally I profile people incorrectly. Fortunately, I can often recover. I do this a lot, so I kind of can think on my feet fairly quickly. So when they walk up, I profile them. I steer them towards a book. Or if it's a Falstaff booth and we've got the whole line, we try to get people to tell us what kind of books they like. Tell me some of your favorite authors. Tell me some of your favorite series. We'll try to play matchmaker. I'm pretty good at this. The people that work my booth, Teresa and Melissa, have gotten to be very good at it. They're better at it than I am, actually, because they're more familiar with some of the titles in our line than I am. But when somebody says, I really like urban fantasy, I'm like, okay. Do you like urban fantasy with a lot of kissing, urban fantasy with a lot of explosions, urban fantasy with a lot of jokes? Well, I kind of like the funny stuff. Okay. You might dig. Sorry, I'm not prepared. Character sheet in the way. You might dig the Black Knight Chronicles. It's my Jim Butcher ripoff. Hi, Jim. I know you ain't watching this, so love you, baby. If you like the Dresden Files, or if you like Kim Harrison's The Hollows series, you'll dig the fuck out of this. Anybody who ever comes up and mentions, well, I really like Eric Asher's Vessex series, I slap this in their hand. And yes, Eric, it has happened. I have absolutely made sales off of you when you weren't even there. Comps are your friend. A lot of agents and editors will tell you not to use comps in your query letter. That's fine. That's a matter of opinion. If you're querying Falstaff, use all the comps you want. If you're querying other people who say that it's bad, don't use comps. But if you're trying to sell books to a human, get to the point. Be self-deprecating. Be funny. Be disarming. Be charming. My friend Darren, who writes the Fugue and Fable series and the Pawn Stratagem series for us, you can get those at falstaffbooks.com or wherever books are sold. Darren has a great ability to talk about Marvel Comics of the 70s, 80s, and very early 90s. He's a giant Daredevil nerd. So whenever somebody comes up in a comic book t-shirt, Darren's got an in with that person. When someone comes up and they've got the little supernatural tattoo symbol on them somewhere, Gail Martin has an in because she is a huge supernatural nerd. When somebody comes up in a pro wrestling t-shirt, I reach up and give them a little too sweet and we have a conversation. I can talk football. I can talk wrestling. I can talk music. It's all about starting a conversation and making a connection. These are basic sales elements that if you've ever worked retail, especially commission-based retail, or any type of professional sales, you've been taught this. You may very well use this Monday through Friday, but for some reason, when you get to a con and you're sitting behind your table, you forget about that. You forget that you're here selling a product. I'm not going to get into whether or not commercialization of your art is good. Obviously, I'm fine to commercialize the shit out of anything because I'm just waiting until I get enough YouTube subscribers to monetize these videos. Y'all did press like and subscribe, right? So I'm about monetizing anything. But when you're sitting behind a table, especially a table that you paid maybe hundreds of dollars for, I just got the invoice for GalaxyCon 2020 today. We need to sell a lot of books to pay for that booth. It's $1,300. We need to sell a lot of books. And it comes with a 4-night hotel stay, not included in the $1,300. So we're going to have to move some shit, y'all. That means that we got to be quick. We got to be snappy. We're here to sling paper. Sometimes that means I'm telling dick jokes at the booth. I have been known to stand behind the table, look at somebody and say, "Have you ever wondered how to kill a zombie with a butt plug?" The answer is almost always no. A few very frightening individuals go into great detail about how they would do it. And I tell them, well, you shouldn't buy Zombies Ate My Homework because obviously you already know that. You should buy these other Shingles titles because they're just as sick and twisted. Come up with a quick 15-second boiled down pitch for your book and you will sell more shit. Understand your look. I'm a big dude. I look like Greg Allman ate Greg Allman. I know this. I look like the guy that got kicked out of the motorcycle club for being too creepy looking. That's why I frequently dye my hair purple. Because a giant guy who looked like he used his head to wipe Grimace's ass is a lot less scary. I know that I'm a big, sometimes intimidating looking dude. So I try to do things to mitigate that. It's why I practically never stand up when I'm selling books at a con. I'm 6'1" and I weigh over 300 pounds. That's a lot to pop up out of a chair at you. And in case you missed it, I'm a little loud and I swear a lot. I don't want to scare people, so I stay seated. I let Melissa or Teresa stand up. They're nice. Well, I mean, at least Teresa looks nice. She's really scarier than I am. But she doesn't look it. I'm usually, don't get too excited, there's an undershirt. I'm usually wearing a black dress shirt, almost dropped my Pepsi, with either a nerdy t-shirt under it, or a brand, a Falstaff t-shirt, an Authors and Dragons t-shirt. You can get those on TeePublic, by the way. Just tpublic.com/FalstaffBooks or tpublic.com Authors and Dragons 1. I am fucking shameless, I know. But this shit pays my mortgage, y'all. I gotta make it where I can. I'm not getting paid for this product placement, but hey, Pepsi. So I sit down. I dye my hair funny colors. I wear nerdy t-shirts. I do things specifically to make me look more friendly, less homicidal. I work against my physical image. If I were prettier, I would dress better. Spoiler, I ain't. Which is good because I really don't like dressing up. Sorry. God. You know, one of the things about getting old that nobody warns you about is when your nose hair and your mustache grow together and you go to trim one and you can't tell which one's itching you worse. That's probably more than you wanted to know. Oh well, fucking I ain't editing this thing. So when you're crafting your pitch, understand that you're going to have multiple audiences. If I'm pitching Queen of Cats and the person says, well, I like Game of Thrones. Okay. Let's say they're 30 years old, middle class, seem to be pretty educated, white dude says he likes Game of Thrones. What does that tell me about him? It tells me he hasn't read the books, because the series is called A Song of Ice and Fire. You knew that. It also tells me that he may not be very well read in the high fantasy genre, but he enjoys magical type stuff. I'm sure he's read all the Harry Potter books, or at least watched all the movies. Maybe he's only watched Game of Thrones, and now he's like, well, that show's pretty cool. I should check out a book like that. Okay, I'm not going to talk to him about the fact that this is an homage to the Belgariad and Tad Williams' Memory, Sorrow, and Thorn series, which I loved when I was in high school and college, and this is me writing based on that, because that's not going to connect with him. I'm not going to tell him that the protagonist of this novel is a D&D character I played in college, because that's not going to get me anywhere. I'm going to tell him that it's a high fantasy, high adventure heist novel where everything that can go wrong does, and oh, by the way, there's kind of a love story and explosions. That's what I'm going to do to somebody who looks mostly like a muggle. Now, if they tell me that they love Tad Williams, or they love Ray Feist, or if they love the stuff I love, I'm like, I always wanted to write Jimmy the Hand. I can't, so I wrote Ramarin. He's not Jimmy the Hand, but there are pieces of Jimmy the Hand in this character. I always wanted to write Silk from the Belgariad, but I can't. So there are pieces of that character, and I can talk nerdy, classic high fantasy with somebody like that and make that connection. If they tell me that they've really loved a lot of recent stuff like Six of Crows, well, or Lies of Locke Lamora, well, I tell them I'm not as good as Lee Bardugo or Scott Lynch, but if you liked those, you'll probably dig this. I'm not going to pitch them my vampire detective novel. But if somebody says, well, I like those Laurel K. Hamilton books, I'm like, okay, those are really good. Anita Blake is one of the things I read before I started writing urban fantasy. This is, in some ways, a response to the Anita Blake books and the Hollows books by Kim Harrison, because I wrote non-sexy vampires. I wrote nerdy vampires. And that's what this is. Oh, that sounds fun. All right, 23 bucks. Thank you. Drive through. So find a way to connect to your reader. Find a way to cut the shit out of your pitch. Know what your fucking book is about. A couple of comic book nerds get turned into vampires and decide to play Batman by becoming private investigators. Along the way, they have to save the world because it's a fantasy novel, so somebody's going to have to save the world eventually. Everyone that has shared a table with me or had a table next to me at a convention for the last 6 years can recite that pitch. That's the Black Knight Chronicles. I got it down. You should have yours down too. Recite it into your webcam on your computer and then play it back. See how you look. If you, well, the book's about this thief and there's some mistaken identity and then he has to go on the run and he's been tricked. Nobody's going to buy anything from you. You don't have to be good at this. You really don't. It's okay if you suck at hand selling books. That's what bookstores are for. If you're not good at it and you don't enjoy it, don't do it. You don't have to. I have friends who hate hand selling their books. Some of them it's because they're really painfully shy. Some of them it's because they hate talking about themselves and feeling like they're self-aggrandizing themselves. Although I don't guess you can self-aggrandize anyone else. Whatever. They shouldn't pay for tables. If you're going to spend 50, 75, 100, 200, $1,300 on a table at a convention, fucking tighten it up. If you don't want to do this, don't. I promise you some other schmo will buy the table. Don't do stuff you hate. And if you're going to do it, work at it and get good at it. It's just like anything else. I was not born hand selling books. Really kind of close to it though. I grew up going with my mother to craft shows. My mother was very crafty. She had a new hobby or a new thing she wanted to learn to do every year. One year she made Christmas ornaments out of these little plastic beads and strands of lace and wire, and she made candy canes and rings, and I don't know, it was tchotchke stuff. But she would go around to craft shows and she would sell this shit. She made baby clothes. She made house coats and gowns and sorry, had to cut for a big old snot there. But my mom went to these craft shows all the time. Well, I was too young to be left home by myself, and my dad had shit to do. He was usually off working on some piece of logging equipment because, funny thing about taking really expensive hydraulic equipment and driving it through the woods every day and hauling thousands of pounds of lumber with it, that shit breaks. Hey, Pepsi, remember. Well, shit, I just dropped the cap. Oh well, I'll get that in a minute. I had to go with her. So I sat under the table and either played with my little G.I. Joe men or I read a book. And I listened to her talk to people all day, every day. And I listened to her best friend, Miss Lib, talk to people all day. And the more they talked to people and the nicer they were, the more money they made. So if you want to make money doing this, get good at it. If you don't want to make money doing this or you hate it, stay home. Write more. It's fine. There are plenty of writers who don't go out and table at conventions and sell anything. You don't have to. You can, I would almost when it was just me writing, I would have absolutely been better served going out somewhere, staying home writing rather than going out somewhere trying to sell a couple $100 worth of paperbacks. Now that I have a press and a writers conference to promote, it's very different because I'm doing multiple things. I'm selling paperbacks, I'm buying writers, and I'm trying to sell memberships and tickets to Saga, the professional development conference for genre fiction writers, March 6th through 8th, 2020 at the University Hilton in Charlotte. Guests of honor include Richard Kadri and Mary Mancusi. Faculty include David B. Koch, A.J. Hartley, Faith Hunter, and many more. You can find out all of that at sagaconference.com. I swear one day I won't get sidetracked pitching my own shit, but today ain't that day. So now that I have multiple things to promote, it makes a lot more sense for me to do a lot more conventions. But if you only have one book, don't pay $300 to buy a table at a convention. You're never going to make it back. If you've got 10 books, sure, you'll probably make back your $300. But if you hate it, don't do it. If you're going to do it, work on your shitty pitch. Send me videos. I want you to upload videos of you pitching your book and put a link in the comments. Show me that you're a badass at pitching. And by the way, you'll be posting a link to a video where people might be able to buy your shit. Go ahead. Or you can go to my Facebook fan page. It's facebook.com/John G. Hartness and post a link there. Shit, you can probably upload a video there. I don't know. I haven't paid attention. Send me your pitch video. Until next time, you go work on your pitch. I'm going to put all these books away and find the cap to my Pepsi and maybe go get some sleep. It's after 11. Good night, y'all. Hey, be good to one another and be good to yourself.